tell me, please, how old were you when you started working with a knife?
I started at age 7. So I was 7 years old. I got my first knife. I used it and carried it every day. I used it for everything from cutting sandwiches to trimming things to cleaning fish. And I got my first straight knife at 8. And I took that with me camping. So I've handled knives since I was, a child.
Why did you pick up exactly a knife?
It was just as natural as anything else. How can I say it? It's the same as picking up any other tool.
How long are you teaching your system?
Let's see. I started teaching knife back in about 1985. We had a backyard martial arts club, and we taught, and I was the one who taught knife.
Could you tell me, please, which kind of system do you use, and do you have your own system?
My knife fighting system is a composite of 3 different core areas. One being Filipino, the other being Native American, and the third being mix of American military and Bowie knife. All right, this is a Bowie knife.
Okay, yes.
Okay, learning to fight with these. This is an American Bowie knife. And then within the way I train, I also teach this knife. This is the Fairbanks Sykes. So these are part of what I teach, along with Filipino knife like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, our everyday carry like this. So you could say big knife, medium knife, small knife.
Can you tell me about your own system?
What would you like to know about it? I mean, that's a big subject to cover. Let's see. I have like on the Native American. I show you a cup. This is my book that I wrote on Native American fighting arts.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, I talk about the Cherokee people and the Apache people and their methods that I learned. And that is a portion of how I've learned to fight.
Could you tell me, please, about logical model in your system?
Okay, so how it works. Okay, to explain it in simple terms, it starts off with long range, medium range, close range, and then fight or wrestle.
Could you tell more about these 5 types of fighting?
All human beings are built the same way. The only thing that makes a difference in knife fighting is the clothes you wear, the social rules that you're under, and the shape of the weapon.
Does it important for you which kind of knife to use?
Yes, depending upon the situation you're in. Good example of that is, say I'm working, I'm out camping or I'm out in the woods. Well, there I'm going to have a large straight knife. As where if I am out in the city and I'm out with my family, I can't carry a large knife because of the laws, so I'm going to carry a small folding knife. So the difference can be, this is what I'm carrying walking around every day. This is for when I'm out camping or working in the woods. So it does make a difference understanding how each tool works.
Do you have some certain methodology of preparing working with a knife? How does it look?
Yes, I do. It starts off with, like I said, it starts with I teach long range. And what I mean by long range is to cut the hand or to cut the wrist. Okay, so we start with whatever is extended out. We call it, in Filipino, we call it defanging the snake. And then, okay, so like with this, if I'm defanging the snake, so I first teach somebody, here's how to hold the knife. Okay, very important. We'll start off with, how do you hold this? What's the proper method to support this kind of knife? There's 7 different grips that are used that I teach my students. I have them use training knives and then practice going through learning the cutting motions and how not to drop the knife.
Can you show these 7 methods how to hold the knife?
Okay, it's the grip. So if you hold a knife, okay, most people hold a knife like this.
Yes.
Okay, you call this a hammer grip. Okay, there's also a locking grip like this. Okay, but this is not necessarily the best method. So if you count this as 1 with a tip forward, count this as 2, the saber grip. 3, we hold it from the side. Okay, most people are familiar with the classic ice pick grip. 4, but you should actually have it reinforced, which is 5. Okay, I prefer at times to hold the knife in reverse like this to peel, and also to reverse the knife like this to peel. That makes 7. Okay? When you hold a knife, most people are busy holding it very hard like this, and you should actually be holding it like this. Knife should be held like this. It's supported. If you're going to roll it, you're holding it like this to carve. Okay, now important to understand, with the grips comes understanding what I call fighting geometry. And what I mean by that is that there are lines that control the body that control your motion. So here, we make the body like this where it creates lines. This is your right outside line, right inside line, center line, left inside, left outside. When you fight somebody, instead of squaring up, if I was to square with you right now, I would offside. So I attack then where you're weak, reduce your number of weapons. A human body has 11 natural weapons to fight with. We add a knife, that makes 12. Why would I fight all the weapons at once? Okay, so understanding the geometry allows you then to now target specific areas. So in my system, it's very important to understand targeting. So from here, this is zone number 1. We divide it in half. Now we have the targets within here. From here down to the waist makes section number 2. Again, specific targets. From the waist down to the feet, target area number 3. Then reverse it to the back, you have the same thing. So we divide the body up into sections and attack targets accordingly. All right, next question. Now, you have not asked about footwork. Footwork is very important. Are you familiar with concepts in footwork? Okay, have you ever read up or done any studies on the Spanish circle?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to try and simplify so you understand, because this is critical in knife work, because if you understand the concepts based upon found in the Spanish circle, knife work literally becomes universal. I'll draw it as best I can on some scratch. All right. So can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So here you are. Here I am. Okay. Normally, I draw this in chalk for a student outside, but we are a long ways away. You see the X's? Those are your feet. Those are my feet. You see how we're completely lined up. And right now that means if you and I were to fight, all 12 weapons would face each other, and the highest probability of being injured or killed is right there, because you're on one line. This used to be taught as regimental fighting. You would go forward and back. Okay, so now, if I step off on any one of these angles, here or here, what I'm doing now is reducing the number of weapons you have. Huh? Yeah, you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we start, you see the circle lines. The circles.
Yes.
Okay, that is the arc in which the knife travels. Those are what I call the sphere of influence, cut from the Spanish circles. What that means is if I adjust, that I can cut in that range. So can you. But if I step offside, it now changes and the circle shifts where I can cut you, but you cannot cut me. Again, that is based upon body motion, avoidance, and footwork.
How do you start teaching people this kind of footwork?
Okay, like I said earlier, I use chalk. And what I do, just like when you learn dance, because all good fighting is about three things: timing, rhythm, fluidity, just like dance. So now I'm having to teach you how to dance, but we're going to learn to dance with knives. If this is a person, here's your right leg, here's your left leg. So we start here, okay? Right leg forward, weapon forward, okay? So now I teach the person, okay, take your foot, slide it back. So it's called the floating foot. We learn to shift our feet first to get the leg out of the way and to avoid, okay? That's lesson 1. Lesson 2, I teach, okay, I want you to step left and pivot to get out of the way. So you're going to step here and then turn. So we learn to dance. Then I say, okay, now I want you to step here, pivot, and come behind. So that's lesson number 3, is to learn to come about a person. In other words, to get behind them, to get past their weapon, to turn the limb around and to get them. So it becomes now circular. So we start out 1, forward and back, 2 to the side, 3 to come about.
Thank you.
Can you tell your opinion? Does it important to have psychological preparation before starting to work with the knife?
Yes, it is. Okay. One of the things I tell people, when you use a knife, you're using deadly force. Understand it has to be without hesitation. That's the first part. So you have to be prepared to use it, which means, do you use a knife all the time? You have to practice so much that you use it like you know your name. To use a knife, first off, you have to have the ability to see the problem coming. So the first thing you have to do is be aware. So there are 2 sides to this. The first side is you have to know how to see the problem coming. Okay? So we go out every day and we have to be aware. Now this is how my awareness works. There's 4 things you have to know that your brain does. And it is you observe, you orient, you decide, you act. Okay? So this is called the OODA loop. It was used by fighter pilots in the 1950s. You have to train enough that when you're grabbed or attacked, you feel, you orient, you react. Okay, so how do you get to this where your mindset is this? You have to have levels of orientation. I call them levels of awareness. There is level white. It means you're home watching TV, everything's good, you're relaxed. When you go out every day and you're walking around, you're in level yellow, condition yellow, which means you're aware that there's a potential for something to happen every day and you're staying alert, you're watching people, you're looking for things that are out of place. Okay, so now we move to orange. Okay, condition orange means I'm walking down the street, I see somebody, and in my mind I say, okay, if this person goes for a weapon or this person starts to attack me, I'm going to do X. I start to build a battle plan. And then we go to condition red. Somebody's just attacked me. Now I'm going to, or I see somebody draw a weapon. Now I go into, I'm going to do X. This is my mindset, and it's, all right, I see my opening where the weapon is not, where I'm safe to attack. And that's condition red, or level red. Okay?
Okay.
So from here, so we've learned how to be aware. We've learned how to be observant and react. From there, we have to work with the tool. So in order to work with the tool, my students have to cut things. So I make them cut plastic bottles, learn to cut different things. I say, okay, you need to use the knife as much as possible. I want you to cut bottles. I want you to go ahead and to cut paper tubes. You need to get so fluid with a knife that you're used to working with it, it's second nature. And then from there, we start going into the training where they take the knife and we have training knives we spar with. And I say, okay, we start with trainers that fold like this, but they're trainers. And then we take these knives and I say, okay, I'm going to attack you. I want you to access your weapon and I'll wear a fencing mask. I'll say, your job is to get me. So we actually practice all different types of attacks so that way they learn to access their weapon and control me. Then we get where I've attacked you with a weapon and I use the weapon. So we build in levels of force.
Скажите, пожалуйста, существует
Could you mind
ли
sharing with us, do you have any
какие-то
certain 5 principles in your system that you start working with the people to teach them?
учеников?
Yes, I start with teaching people the responsibility for what they're going to do. And what I call is ethical cutting. And what I mean by that is, what is my goal here? Is my goal just to wound them, or am I fighting for my life? If I need to say, I'm being attacked, but I need to just get away, I teach my students, let's start with ethical cutting. So what happens to most people if they get cut in here or they get cut in here? Will you die? No. Will this help cripple you? Yes. If you get cut in here, what happens? You lose the ability to use your arm. Here. These things are not fatal, but it's ethical cutting. In other words, you didn't kill them, but what you did do is disable them so you can get away. We start with that, and then I teach my students to protect their vital core. So if you think about this, from about right here down is your vital core. You need to learn to protect so that way your weapon should be in front of your protective core. You should not be weapon out here, weapon out here. The weapon should be, the weapon should always be in this core to protect, to make sure that you can counter quickly.
Do you have some strategy and tactics in your system? Could you tell us about this?
Okay, so strategies and tactics. Okay. You want to think about strategies are what? Ways that we go about having a methodology. Okay, is my strategy offensive or defensive? Okay, or am I transitional? So what I mean by that is in my thought process is, okay, I see somebody coming, they've pulled a weapon. All right, now I'm on the defensive. Now I may be defensively offensive, which may mean I move in quickly, taking out a limb and getting in and out quickly. In other words, can I cut them and run? Because they probably have a friend. Usually fights don't exist with just one. Okay, so I may turn around. Now if I get attacked and somebody pulls something, then I'm going to be defensive, and that's where I'm going to go from defensive to offensive. In other words, hit them hard enough and fast, especially trying to disable them first before going ahead and going into saying full offensive, which is to finish them. In other words, then it becomes specific targets. In my system, I use very specific concepts and targets. The limbs, the body, it's all specific targets. My students are taught to hit with accuracy repetitively, so it becomes second nature. So, good example, if I was having to fight with you, okay, so what am I going to do? Depending upon my angle, it's going to be I go for a limb, and I may go right above your eye to get the blood in your eyes to blind you. You're not wounded, more than annoyed type blood in your eye, etc., but you're not fatal. Now, if it's somebody where they have a gun, where they're coming at me with a knife, then it's going to be lethal force.
What's the number of these pieces of human's body that are targets?
Oh no, it's multiple targets. The human body has many targets that cause different things. In martial arts, you're taught to, depending upon what is your goal. So, let's say you take your hand, okay? We'll just start with a hand. All right, so if I need to make you let go of me, where would you cut or stab? Well, what happens when you go right in here? What does it do to your grip? Okay, so if I needed to punch down, I'm going to punch down with a knife here. Because what does this do now? It makes the hand open up. Okay, what happens when this area gets cut, or particularly right in these joints here? you have no grip. So one quick knife wound like that, there's no grip now. So that's an example. Top of the wrist right here, okay? That controls your ability to what? You get hit here, you can't now what? Grab. It's okay. You get hit here, you can't open. If you get hit here, what happens? So we start with that. This muscle right down in here, you get hit right in here. What happens is your arm will just go straight. Your bicep curls. I hit a guy one time in here, and his arm just went boom, and he lost the ability to hold the knife. Okay? Right here. Cut this, you can't raise the arm. Right here, you can't move your shoulder. Okay? That's just the arm. Okay? Think about this. If I need to disable you, if I want to go ahead, I'm going to be cut one, cut two. Okay? Snap, snap. In Apache, they call it the snapping turtle. It's very quick. Okay? Now, if I need to go ahead and I want to stop you quickly, that's very effective. Okay? If again, now these are all non-fatal wounds. Okay? Then we have what? To the body, we have things within the core. Now, these are all, now we're getting into fatal wounds. Okay? So you start saying to yourself, okay, standard fatal wounds, the eye, throat, heart, lungs, great vessels. Okay? If you have to slow somebody down, say we're in military combat. Okay? Well, then we're going to go after wherever there's a pulse. So you have wrist here, where the pulse is, brachial artery in here, here, this is all fatal, okay, fatal, here, fatal, and to the groin.
Okay, thank
Those
you.
are all basic. Now, we didn't go and cover the legs because the legs are targets too. Remember when people kick. So if you think about it, so if I put my foot up, I cut the back of the leg there. I don't know how much you can see. That does what? That gets the Achilles tendon. Now you can't walk. So when somebody kicks at you and you cut the back side, they can't walk anymore.
Правильно ли я понимаю?
Did I understand right that your system, it's not a sport but appliance system? And that means if one knows it, he doesn't afraid to go outside.
На улице не боятся спокойно ходить.
That's right.
That is correct. The system is developed for self-defense. Okay? It's not developed for offense, but it's developed for self-defense, for self-preservation. In other words, if I trained you, you would go out there and you would feel confident that you could defend yourself and your loved ones in an effective manner. It is not sport. It's sport. It is truly combat, particularly for self-defense. In other words, my system, the sistema, is for your preservation.
Скажите, пожалуйста, Марк,
We have a lot of situations today when one person practicing working with a knife in gym for 3-5 years. But when he faced real situation on the street, he doesn't know what to do and just run away. Why does it happen?
с чем это связано?
People fall to their level of training. So if you train for sport and you never encounter situations where you would be attacked, then you'll have never learned. So people will fall to their level of training. So to solve that, you have to train in those situations. So in your gym, if I was training people in the way I train them, is we have levels of force that I teach people. So what I mean by that is I will have people attack with different weapons, and you will have to defend. And it will be, you walk through the door and you get jumped, just like you would in real, because now my students are ready and they have to apply the training weapons. I say, you walk in, okay, now somebody's got a gun, and it's an airsoft, so they're going to shoot at you, okay? Or somebody goes ahead and they jump at you with a knife. Hey, I'm going to kick your ass, and now it's on. So now you have to defend. That's how you beat that, is you train for enough of those, just like the military does.
Could you share your opinion? What actually pushed the person that he decided to start working with a knife?
I think the reason people learn to work with knives is they're tools that are around you every day. And if you have something around you every day, A knife will make you feel confident. Think about this. If I hand you two ladies knives and I say, okay, we're going out for the evening and you have them and they're accessible, you don't worry about being attacked because you've trained with it. The more you train with it, the more confident you are. In other words, it's a psychological, with your training is there, but then if I teach you to attack and fight with it, then you've learned now to fight back. Now your mindset is, okay. And so as you do get attacked, it's like, oh, I've had this happen before. Oh, somebody hit me. Boom, I go defensive. Now, oh, they're grabbing me. Okay, knife is out. See, you didn't even see the knife pass there, did you?
Скажите, пожалуйста, как вы
Mark, how do you think why there exist a lot of teachers of knife fighting today?
начать преподавать именно ножевой бой?
I think a lot of them don't teach people to fight. In other words, they don't have the mindset. A lot of them are built on sport. And if you've never scrapped, you've never been in situations, you don't come from a combative background, then you get people who, okay, I learned to do this. A good example, a lot of Filipino martial arts, they teach people to duel with knives, not fight with knives. So it's always one knife, another knife, etc. It's not, okay, I'm going to jump you right now and I'm going to start beating on you. Now you access your weapon. Very few schools train this way. They don't say, okay, I need to teach you how to fight right now. In other words, I take the idea that, like in Krav Maga, they teach their students right away to fight. Okay, well, in the old Filipino methods from World War II was the same thing. We teach you to fight right now. That's why, and I think that's where it gets lost in people, is they're teaching the sport is when I'm teaching you how to fight.
Скажите, пожалуйста,
Mark, do you have some certain criteria according to which you can understand if one person is a master or not?
это мастер или нет?
You can tell by their motion right away. You can tell. It's interesting to watch. You can watch people who have mastered the weapon by how fluid they are and how they move. And you can tell right away if they've never picked up a weapon or they really haven't mastered it. Mastery is an interesting thing because to truly master an art, you take everything you've learned, break it down into its pieces, learn each component of it, and then put it back together and make it your own. That is mastery. So when you meet somebody who says, I'm a master in an art, I'll say, okay, let's play. And I'll throw them a training knife. Say, okay, come on, get me. And I can tell very quickly if they have what it takes. And if I proceed to carve them up, they'll go, oh. I'm like, yeah, oh, you go back to lessons, And that's why I have many masters that train with me as students. Most of my students that I train today are all masters from other arts that have come and visit me and then found out, hey, you got a lot to learn. Real important is it gets into their basics. Truly, when you see somebody and they're going to demonstrate for you and they show you something very complicated, and I go, cute, that's nice. That doesn't tell me if you have any good real skill. I watch a person for their basics. How well do they cover their core? How do they hold the knife? Do they use it in a fluid manner? Can they get out of the way? That's what I look at first because the rest of it is show. I see many people who would look good in the movies, but they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag.
Did I understood right that your system are based on the simple actions?
That is correct.
Скажите, пожалуйста,
Can you tell me please, what are advantages of your system over another?
других?
Mine's simple to learn. It's simple, uses natural motion, and it uses gross motor motion, so you won't forget it under pressure. So let's say I say to you, okay, I'm going to teach you to use the knife. So first I say, okay, do you know how to shave? Do you know how to shave? See? We shave. Okay, that's a natural motion. How about we peel? Oh, I want you to shave the carrot. Okay, I say, okay, now clean the fish. 1, 2, 3, there's the fillet. So I say, okay, now let's turn over the eggs. Let's turn over the pancake. So I call it flipping burgers. Flip a burger. Look, flip a burger. That's a knife move. Okay, flip a burger, peel the carrot. So it might be flip the burger, and now let's poke the box. So if I give you everyday motion and I say to you, oh, okay, I want you to do this. You know how to do that already, but you don't know it as a fighting motion.
Mark, how do you think? Does a knife have some future in 21st century?
I think the knife will always have a place in human society as we have carried knives and we use knives every day. You know, you use it to prep your meal. You use it to clean fish. You use it to cut vegetables. I think the only thing that might ban it is laws, is in places where you can't carry a knife at all. And then you learn to use things in place of it. Good example, look at prisons. No knives. No knives are allowed, but they make them out of anything. So the concepts are still there. I think that knife fighting is something that it's as old as time, and it will be here long after many things have passed.
Would you mind sharing with us something else about your system?
One of the things that I teach, and I put out a video on this, I'll show you the video here, has to do with self-defense. In other words, how do you control somebody when they've attacked you with a knife and you haven't accessed yours? See, most knife fighting systems focus on, I have the knife. Well, what if my knife is still in my pocket? Ooh, that's not good. So how do I control if somebody's trying to say, stab me quickly? Okay, how do I control that limb quickly and the body? What about a distractionary injury to keep them from being able to cut me? These are things that are critical when you learn to fight with knives, is also to fight against till you can access. And it may be that you need to then draw your weapon, whether it be a gun, it's a knife, or you need to run away because there's more than one person. The other thing that I teach people that most knife systems don't teach is how to use everyday objects to defend if attacked. I teach how to use a hat, the jacket, a cup of coffee, whatever you have handy, it may be the pen, whatever you have available as an alternate weapon, because you may not have that knife. So imagine my knife system is composed of using science with anatomy, physiology, geometry, along with concepts from dance and motion. So, as one friend of mine said, my knife system is much like dancing with knives, as he said. At the same time, if I don't have a knife, how do I defend, and what can I use that's whatever around me? Everything is a tool then. And then how do I scientifically and quickly take this person out from being a threat? Because I have the next person to deal with.
Mark, did I understand right that the main principle of your system is speed?
No, not just speed. Motion. And what I mean by that is learning to be fluid in motion. Sometimes it's not the speed that you need, it's the fluid motion and trickery. So a good example of that, okay? I tell you, look up there. When did you see me draw the knife? See what I mean? It may be that I need to distract to bring the knife into play. It is not necessarily always based on speed. That's where I think that makes us very unique, is that we use science. We use the science of the anatomy, the physiology, the geometry, and fluid motion. So we're fluid in our fighting. At the same time, we're controlling our space, much like you do in dance. And we're also using trickery. In other words, hey, look over here. By the way, there's the knife, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you have? What if you don't have a knife? I had a guy pull a knife one time, and I solved it with a cup of coffee. He came at me with a knife. I threw coffee in his face. He dropped the knife. That was the end of the fight because his face was burned. It made it very simple.
Скажите, пожалуйста,
Mark, what would you recommend the people that are just decided to start working with a knife?
думают о том, чтобы заняться ножевым боем?
Start with working with a knife regularly. In other words, practice cutting things, getting fluid with it, grabbing it out of your pocket, opening it so you get used to it. Make it become every day. Learn to walk along and to practice with it. Even if it's just walking around the house, where you're fluid. So you're just walking like this and you learn, okay, I'm cutting and checking and cutting, moving in and out and back and forth. Oh, okay, so I learned to do these motions so that it becomes every day. Shadow fighting. Shadow fighting is great because what would you do if? You can do this even walking in the woods. Say, okay, so I learned to go walk around and I practice. So it becomes natural motion every day, and you become to the, and even the simplest methods, practiced repetitively every day and fluidly, will give you an edge over most because you'll have timing, rhythm, and fluidity.